What's up everyone? My name is Mark Baselt and I wanted to make a quick video about two books that I read recently that have really had a big impact in my personal life as well as my real estate business. For a little bit of context, I've been reading for as long as I can remember. In fact, I used to get in trouble for staying up late with the lights on trying to read just one more chapter before my parents would inevitably come up and put a stop to it. There were no fancy backlit Kindles or even iPads or smartphones back then, which surely would have made things a lot easier for me. I actually remember one time I had this lamp that clamped onto my bed frame and I positioned the arm so that it would be against the wood of that bed frame to try and shield some of the light so it wouldn't go under the door, so that my mom wouldn't see it and come up and put a stop to it. Now, I would have pulled it off too, except when I finished for the night and I moved the lamp back to where it was supposed to be, I noticed that I'd burned a freaking huge, super visible black mark into the bedpost, and my heart sank knowing there was no way to hide this one. Sure enough, as soon as my mom woke up and came upstairs and saw it, I was in deep shit. I mean, she pointed out that I could have started a fire and potentially burned the house down, so, there went that idea. If only it had been LEDs, I probably would have got away with it. So anyways, as you may have gathered, I love to read, and I've been doing it for years. Back then, it was really just entertainment. I mean, I literally read like every single Star Wars novel that they ever released at the time, as well as, any number of other things. But it wasn't until I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People that a nonfiction book really caught my attention. Fast forward to 6 months ago, and I've now read or listened to so many incredible books, each of them usually leave me with a few key principles and takeaways that I can apply directly to my life. And the results so far, they've been incredible. I mean, ultimately, I wouldn't be here right now making this video if it wasn't for the power of reading, audiobooks, podcasts, that sort of thing. Ways to kind of expand my thinking and to let myself understand that, hey, I can do these things. I can, become someone that I want to be. And in this case, I became a realtor, and now I'm getting into video, which is still a little nerve-wracking, but hey, I'm here. The two books I'm referring to that have had a huge impact on me and that I've wholeheartedly been recommending to everyone. The first one it's a book by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference. I don't have the physical copy on me as I've loaned it out, but it's been a fantastic book. And Chris Voss, if you don't know, he was one time the FBI's lead hostage negotiator. Now, at first I was wondering how is that applicable to myself and my life and career, but I quickly realized through listening to him that it was essential that I understand not only its contents, but learn how to apply them into my life as soon as possible. So in his book, Chris details the techniques and strategies he had to adopt to negotiate under some of the most intense circumstances, where his words and how he used them had real life consequences of the highest magnitude. I mean, people's lives were literally at stake. Now, I hope to never have that kind of pressure and constraints on my own negotiations, but I can tell you firsthand that negotiating in my line of work can sometimes feel like people's lives are at stake, in a hypothetical sense, of course. Because ultimately, the purchase or sale of a house is probably the biggest transaction that most people will do in their lives, so the stakes really are quite high. One of the techniques that Chris teaches is called labeling, which is a communication skill that allows us to attach like a tentative identification of the dynamics, emotions, or circumstances implied by the other party, or at least implied by their words, actions, or demeanor. When used effectively, labeling becomes one of the most powerful skills available to us because it helps us to uncover the factors that drive the other person's behavior. So for instance, if you label a positive, you reinforce that positive. If you label a negative, that negative is diminished. So for example, just recently, I was able to use labeling to identify that an agent who I was working a negotiation with on a property, he was clearly agitated or upset or something was going on, but we were not on the same level. And this was obvious as soon as the call started, because he was speaking in an unnecessarily aggressive manner, which I knew wasn't going to lend itself to a proper discussion. So I simply said to him, "It seems like you're upset." And of course, he replied hastily, "I'm not excited." To use his words, and I paused to let his words register him and sink in after kind of they lingered, and it was really quick for him to realize that, hey, okay, maybe something was going on, and maybe he was excited, and his whole demeanor softened. I mean, his attitude dropped down to a level where we could continue the negotiations, and there were no further theatrics. I've also tried to use labeling with my wife and kids to mostly successful results. But it's a skill like anything else, and it's gonna need some more practice for them. The other book I wanted to talk about is without a doubt the single most influential book that I've ever consumed. And I say consumed because I haven't actually fully read it yet. I listened to it for the first time last November and found it to be so profound in that moment that I did something that I've never done before with any of all the other hundreds of books that I've read in the past, which was to immediately start the book over from the beginning as soon as it was done and listen to the whole thing again. Now, once I'd done that, I bought the physical copy, and I'm now reading, 10 minutes a day as part of my Millionaire Mentor or Millionaire Mindset morning. And it's been awesome because I'm really taking the time to go through and highlight some of the more important stuff. And the point of that is to keep it as a bit of a productivity Bible, if you will, from here on out, because there's just so much valuable information in there and stuff that, I'm going to be using for the rest of my career and the rest of my life. And, you're never going to get the whole benefit of it from just kind of listening to it once or twice. It's definitely something I'll probably read or listen to once or twice a year, if not more. And certainly once this physical copy is all marked up, I'm going to continue to reference back to that and be able to quickly go through and kind of remind myself of all the important things. Around the time when I first listened to it, I was actually really struggling to find consistency in my life. There were a few factors, but ultimately it came down to that I just didn't have a proper routine anymore for my fitness, for my business after switching brokerages, or even for my personal growth. So many light bulbs went off in my head from the first chapter of the book to the last, because it distilled what I already knew to be the right course of action down to like the most basic and easiest form, as a way of highlighting the very title of the book. The very first page of the book gives these definitions. Atomic, definition 1, an extremely small amount of a thing, or the single irreducible unit of a longer system. Definition 2, a source of immense power and energy. Habit, definition, a routine or practice performed regularly, an automatic response to a specific situation. So what does that mean? It means that atomic is both small and possessing of immense energy or power, and that's how you should view the process of creating a new habit or breaking a bad one. It should be tackled one atomic step at a time in all areas of your life, to have the net result be large and impactful. Once I got started on making these small changes and then sticking with them, I finally started seeing results everywhere. It was a wild, exhilarating feeling, if I'm being honest, and I didn't want it to stop. So I made a pact with myself that I would do whatever it takes to stick with my newly created millionaire morning routine. And that's exactly what I did for over 90 days in a row. I'd never been so consistent in my life, and I'd never had so much momentum or confidence that I felt better than I had at any point in the last decade. And it was no longer optimistic or hope and a prayer kind of confidence, but confidence in the fact that I could look myself in the mirror and honestly say that yes, I was indeed putting in the time, putting in the work. Consistency was the magic sauce for me, and it was working wonders. Unfortunately, I got really sick in February and was out of commission for a month straight. And it was another 4 weeks after that month for my voice to come back fully. And in that time, COVID-19 became what it is now, and everything just shut down, along with my precious, newly formed habits. It's been over 2 months now since getting sick, and it wasn't until just a few days ago that I was finally able to properly get back into my morning routine. It's definitely not what it was or at the level that it was before, but every day gets a little bit better as I adjust to the new reality that things, they may take a little longer than originally anticipated to get back to normal. That time, however, was like a punch to the gut, because I told myself that with everything I had in place, there was no obstacle that was going to interfere with my newly formed habits. But obviously, I could have never predicted this pandemic, and that one of the largest components of my routine, the gym itself, would be completely inaccessible for me. But there's always silver linings to be found if you just maintain a positive mental attitude and look around yourself and inside yourself. And so now I have a home gym in my home, down in the basement, which I didn't have before. And with the weather slowly getting nicer out, the option to go biking and running outdoors is once again available. And so I'll just make it work with what I have, and get back to where I left off those couple of months ago. And that's the power of filling your mind with the right things, with reading something like this that continuously inspires you and reminds you that it's not this big, crazy ordeal to get back to where you were, to just start again, start those small steps, and you'll find you quickly get back to where you were faster than you thought you could have. But if you don't do that stuff, you continue to slide backwards. It just gets tougher and tougher. The more time that goes on that you're not working on yourself or your habits, it's rough getting back. Getting into shape is hard. Staying in shape is easy. So get to that level where you want to be and just maintain that to the best of your ability. So those that can adapt and pivot and make the right changes are going to find that they can overcome these kind of events that no one can control. So go read some books, listen to some inspirational or educational podcasts, spend some time just thinking, and you can thrive during this time. There's never been a time in history where you have this much, where you're told to stay home and work on yourself or things that you have been meaning to work on. If you don't know where to start or what to read first, I think it's clear by now which books I would recommend to you, but I understand that everyone's situation is different and their wants, needs, and desires won't be solved with a blanket recommendation. But I have become pretty good at listening to what someone is saying they need to learn, and then knowing where to point them or giving them examples of times in my own life when I may have been going through something similar and where I turned for my own solutions. So please, you guys, I want you to understand that I'd love to help you out if I can. I will take the time to respond if you reach out and either loan you the book if I have it, or at least point you in the direction of which book so that I think can help you out. Don't be shy, shoot me a message or comment down below, and let's make the best use of this isolation time to level up and to come out of this a better version than we went in. If you like this video and would like me to give my opinions on any of the other books I own or have read, let me know so I can start creating those videos for you guys now. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to my channel, as well as lightly tapping that little notification bell so that you'll be alerted every time I make a new video. Mark out.